Friday the 25th.
Of April?
Have an AAU state cup.
So we're talking March 25th, Thursday, for the winter session, shall we say, a winter retreat, and then April 25th, Friday, for the budget workshop.
No,
No, 20th.
March 20th.
I had March 20th, I don't know why I said 21st, but I wrote down 20th.
It's
Okay.
okay.
Let me just, Jerry said he may not be here, but let me ask you, is it the whole week? Or the-
It's just that weekend, 25th, 26th, 27th. I'm not even sure where it is, but it's AAU cup for gymnastics. So I can get more information there before we go. No need to throw that wrench just yet. Okay, so we can stick with that.
All right.
Thank you.
So April 25th. I'll move it back early in the week if that works better.
Should we put next year's on the calendar?
Best of luck with that.
Right? Just plug it in there.
Early that week.
22nd, no problem for folks.
What, 22nd of what?
April 22nd.
April 22nd.
Wouldn't be.
That's a Tuesday.
The only,
It's Earth Day, we have the cleanup, don't we?
You do.
I think that is correct. I'll
Yeah, it's
confirm the
Earth Day.
date.
It's like 5 o'clock, isn't it?
Sir,
Isn't birthday cleanup like 5 o'clock?
that's correct. Well, I'll confirm that, because generally we waited till school was out and people was off work, but I honestly haven't signed off on times. But they can begin without us.
Yeah. I'm good with it. I just
Finish
brushed
up and go out and
Okay,
work on Earth Day.
I'm good with that.
22nd.
Y'all gonna come with a present for me for my 25th year.
It's what?
It's 5 to 8, it's on Parks and Rec.
Earth Day, 5 to 8.
What, do we need a double, do we need to reserve the 23rd too for overflow?
I wouldn't anticipate that.
Okay.
All right, so
We're switching
got
it
April
to
25th, and
22nd.
22nd. That's a Tuesday.
Tuesday the 22nd.
Correct.
So April 22nd,
Correct.
8:30 a.m. We have Rotary leaving. I'll need time to set up.
do what?
Pee Wee Herman's birthday.
Okay. 8:30.
Yes, sir.
I wouldn't be surprised.
8:30.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. All right, we good?
That was a record, by the way. That was a 2-for-1, we scheduled 2. Schedule 1.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Take them all, we can get them.
Okay, let me read this back. Thursday the 20th, 8 to 2 p.m. And then Friday, if needed, 8 to 12 for the strategic planning. Budget, April 22nd, beginning at 8:30. I mean, March, April, April 22nd.
March 20th.
It's March, did I say April there? I'm
March
sorry.
20th.
March 20th and March 21st. April 22nd.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, next item on the agenda is discussion waiving late fees for lifespan. Turn it over to our finance director.
So this is a nonprofit organization. And a few months back, Kimberly, our utility billing specialist, she noticed by reviewing accounts that it was obvious that their numbers were very skewed for that month. So after some investigation, they had a leak underground. So they had some significant water flow through there and leak out. And, so they're in a payment plan.
If I may interrupt, it wasn't just a leak. It generated tens of thousands of dollars of a water bill.
Yes.
And it was a pretty significant line. They had no way of knowing. Had our staff not found it, it would have been even worse. As soon as they were made aware, they had a person there within hours who volunteers. I think most of you all are familiar with the services that Lifespan offers to our community. And they just reached out to Justin and I stating what hardship it was just to pay the water bill. They, of course, understood why they owed it per state statutes. And I expressed that we didn't have the latitude of waiving those fees because there were a cost. And while they was meeting with their board of directors to try to come up with some idea of how to pay the bill, that's when the time lapsed, and they're simply requesting that now that we have worked out a payment schedule that seems to be good for all parties, they would just like to waive the late fees, because it wasn't that they ignored it, it's just they needed direction from their board before they could proceed with a payment schedule.
Just got a question. I read the agenda briefing, and I see that the nonprofit is based out of Charlotte. I mean, it could be based out of Michigan, but it's not based out of Troutman?
No, sir. Well, the facility is in Troutman, of course, but no, when that program was developed a few decades ago, that was a group out of Charlotte that did them. If it's my understanding, there's 4 such facilities.
And I am unfamiliar with what they do for the community, so if you could please enlighten me.
But basically, it's a place for adults with disabilities that cannot work in a normal work environment, if there is such a thing. They provide services there such as street signs for the county, but they, basically it's a place for people to go work that is supervised. In some situations, it's one-on-one. In other situations, it's one supervisor for 3. But it's a way of assisting those that have disabilities to still be productive and have a sense of belonging.
Gotcha, thank you.
One example, this has been many years ago now, Rosa had some furniture that needed refurbishing. And they were able to do that at a very reasonable price. And, you know, they learned something and they made money, and, you know, we got our service provided and citizens of the town and so forth. So, I mean, it's available to anybody, not just me. I just happened to hear about it. I knew they were there, but I didn't know they served the public like that until someone told me, and took advantage of it. And I saw it as a two-way street. I got something, a good situation. You know, they learned and helped the community and so forth. So,
I didn't know this
yep,
it even existed here.
right, yep.
So the sewer fees have already been credited back?
Yes.
What did that total?
I'm sorry?
What did that total? Is that this 23,000?
The sewer adjustment, yes. Yes,
So the only-
$23,200.16.
But again, that cost did not come from Statesville. I mean, obviously, it didn't, you know, there was no sewer
Yeah.
charge from Statesville, so I
Yeah.
mean, it went to grant on the sewer part.
So they're only asking for the 1656 to be waived?
Yes, sir.
By state statute, you all certainly can vote to do different things, but by state statute, nonprofit or not, good or not, I don't think we have the option of reducing what they actually charge for water, because we had to pay fees for that.
So they're not trying to debate whether they pay their water bill, they just want
No, sir.
the almost $1,700
Correct.
taken off, so that they don't accrue more fees.
Correct.
Like
Yes,
this.
sir.
And I admire them for that.
Sounds
Uh,
reasonable.
I admire them for that because we haven't always been that fortunate with another situation, and that's as far as I'm gonna carry that, with a nonprofit. And, these folks are taking the high road and wanting to do the right thing, even though it's a tremendous hardship on them, I'm sure, to say the least. And $1,656 to help out,
$16,000
nonprofits that, yeah, I mean, you're talking, he was near 40,000 cost to them.
Yeah.
And to help out somebody, this a nonprofit that's been with us for a number of years, provides a valuable service, very positive service. I think that's a small price to pay to work with this group and help them out in a fortunate situation.
So is that a motion?
I'll make that motion, sir.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is made, received a couple of seconds.
The motion is to wait.
Mr. Wade,
Yes, sir.
any other question or comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, that motion passes. Mr. Now, I do know that they welcome visitors over there.
Yes, they do. Very nice people.
See what's going on.
Mr. Mayor, I think that's a great idea. If you all are open to it, that we, Justin or I, will reach out to them and just say, hey, it's been a while since we as a town have formally visited, and that we try to schedule a visitation, include a couple other elected officials if you all so desire, and of course the press, so that just like what's been discussed here, it's a valuable resource on one end. I'd say the majority of our community don't know it exists. So I'll be happy with Justin to try to coordinate that if you all are interested.
Fantastic.
Our officers go by there, but, and it's always the guys that go, and ladies, it's a, moving experience when they go visit them, just to see what be provided and how it changes their lives.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And it may be an opportunity if the press assists us that some people will get wind of it and help donate towards something that was not of their making to help them out. I certainly think that would be an additional opportunity as well.
Sally and I took that tour many years ago when she was with us, and it was very enjoyable, very informative, and I'm glad, please do, and I want to be included in that, even though I've been, I'd love to go again. It's very educational.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is a review of Thursday's regular agenda. Mr. White?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Roman numeral 6, consent agenda. A, B, and C are minutes. Roman numeral 6D is an applicant, Sterling Properties of Mooresville, is wanting to request annexation of 49.62 acres off of Autumn Leaf Road. And this directs the clerk to investigate a petition. You all have any comments on that? Andrew, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, this is the piece of property between the Coil Haven subdivision and Autumn Leaf Road. It's been proposed for rezoning on a couple occasions. However, this particular annexation does not have a rezoning component to it. So it's gonna develop as it's currently zoned right now, low density. So they're just wanting to annex to get access to town sewers.
RS right now.
RS, that's correct.
Only less than a couple of years ago, this was turned down, am I correct?
No.
The rezoning component was, yes, because they'd want to do a higher density development there. So what they're asking, this is just a straight annexation to develop it as a currently zoned. It's 800 TJ.
This would be, how many homes?
It's no more than 2 units per acre.
Located where?
Near Quail Haven.
It's in the curve if you're coming from Main Street on the right at the curve. Everybody refers to it as the curve.
Oh, I think you
Autumn
were here,
Leaf
right?
coming out there.
What was the density on that?
It was up in 5 or 6.
Okay, now it's gonna go down to 2?
Yeah, it's currently zoned for that, so they are permitted to do that by right now. They just
They
want,
could do it right now,
that's
without
right.
asking.
Yep, they just want our sewer. So therefore,
And also, just to clarify, the parts that was toned down was that community showed up with fears of people being in their pond, being on their property. But that was a larger project. It did not just encompass one parcel. It was a couple things that, and the high density for the rezoning request. This is just simply straight up annexation and by right build, as Andrew stated, it's 2 units per acre.
And as Andrew just stated, it's only annexation for sewer and water. It's basically, we really, I mean, if we turn it down, they can still build it.
100%. And they,
It's a county property.
So they can build it on the county.
Yeah, then we won't get.
Correct.
You wouldn't get any.
Yeah.
I think it was much, and and I remember what you're talking about the pond, but I mean, as to what, town manager said, I think it was basically some other situations, the biggest one being the traffic, those folks, these other projects out there, they have really come very ardently and proposed that we, don't do anything to widen the road, which of course, they're not gonna do anything until you have the traffic out there, so it's chicken and egg thing.
I think, Paul, too, one of the big questions with council, we turned it down, was it was gonna devalue the people that lived in Quail Hollow, Quail Haven, value of their homes.
Yep. I just remember the traffic situation, they were really,
They were talking about maybe going through that development.
well, that too, yeah, right, using that as.
Yes, it would have had a connectivity piece.
That was before my time.
Which will not happen,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
will not happen now. am I
That is correct. Any other questions on that? Roman numeral 6E is an annexation request, John Lambert of 142 Scotch Irish Lane, requesting an annex property, 0.39 acres. Andrew?
Yeah, this is just a single lot in the Meadowland subdivision, also in the CPA. It's similar to that, Howard Culver property that we discussed, pretty much in depth a couple months ago. They just want some town water for policy, we're requiring an annex. And again, there's no zoning change component to this case, so it's just an annexation.
How much of that neighborhood is already annexed?
There's no property in that neighborhood currently that's annexed.
Do we currently have water and sewer running through the neighborhood?
We have water.
Water.
They're all on that outside.
Okay.
They're still building in that area too.
There's a
Lot by
handful
lot,
of
yeah, yeah.
lots. We didn't get really any pushback from this property owner, so.
There's a lot of acreage over there, for sure.
Yeah, I remember that, we did that, a long time ago anyhow, that's all the developer wanted at that time, he didn't want to pay for the sewer, so, that's what we agreed to.
Roman numeral 6F is consider amendment to the fee schedule. Justin?
Just had a blank. Oh, the engineering review fee. So it is currently $90 per hour. This is a fee we're charged by West Consultants for, planning and zoning activity, when they meet with the developers. And so we're just asking to increase that to $140 per hour, which is the cost to us.
Once we are billed from our consultants, we then charge an administrative fee on top of that and bill the people. Typically, it's a 60-day turnaround from when we're billed, we pay, we bill, and are waiting to be paid. There's one particular developer that went and looked and saw that our website was not updated with the current fees. We are simply trying to make sure we're ahead of the curve instead of behind it. Roman numeral 7, this what we discussed earlier, a couple employees that will be recognized Thursday. Roman numeral 8.
Mr. White,
Yes, sir.
let me ask you a question on the fee real quick.
Yes, sir.
The admin fee, 10%, 5%, what's the difference there?
The invoice is greater, I believe it's 2,000.
Correct.
It's 5%. But if it's less than 2,000, then and it's 10%.
And is that because,
Because basically, no matter the price of it, the cost of it, we're gonna have the same amount of time, you know, at $100 invoice versus, or $3,000 invoice. The same prep time for admin staff.
I would say is around 30% of the bills that we get, even with the larger fee for less than 2,000, it actually costs us money to process those. But because we have so many that's over 2,000, even though we're only charging 5% for those, that's what makes us be on the positive side when it's done.
We still break even at 5% over 2,000, is that what you're saying?
Roughly.
And then we're
Actually,
losing under 2,000
Right,
with five,
right.
okay, got you. Thank you.
Roman numeral 7 was presentation of employees. Roman numeral 8, consider a request from Barium Seasons Homeowner Association for council's approval. They would like to have 4 stop signs to be placed within the subdivision. You all have the documentation on that. Just a reminder, I had sent out letters to every resident in the community asking them to comment. As you all know, when these communities want different things, staff, Andrew's department, and I have to look at all the factors. It is hard to explain quickly so that everybody in the town is happy, but basically, if the town, I'll use West Avenue as an example. If the town has created development somewhere that then makes that a thoroughfare, then we did go over and place speed calming devices on that, because DOT along with our town now said West Avenue is no longer just a neighborhood street. It's a pass-through from one major road to another. So we were able to add speed tables there. But when you have a lot of the other communities, Barium Seasons being one of our, I would say mid-level as far as time-wise of development communities, but we have had a lot of new construction communities requesting speed tables, humps, stop signs, and they're not even built out and the street's not turned over to us yet. So adhering to our policies, I did communicate with those that reached out and or the HOA, past president, current president. The policy of the town being that is not considered a thoroughfare. If they wanted to do anything, it would be at their cost. However, you all still have to approve street modifications or improvements. To some neighbors, this is not going to be an improvement, but to the majority at their HOA meeting, it was overwhelmingly passed that the stop signs are the least intrusive way of trying to slow traffic down at certain points within that community. Staff would install them. Whatever the actual costs are at the time of materials and labor is what Barium HOA would reimburse the town.
Mark, one more time, I'm sorry, I missed that.
I'm sorry?
Just that last line.
Whatever the actual cost of the materials and town staff time to erect them, the Barium HOA would reimburse the town for that cost. So it's not costing the town anything. This is more of you all approving that those streets can be modified, which then allows our police department to enforce it. Because if you all don't, there's a stop sign there, there's nothing legally they can do about it.
Something just popped into my head. We're putting up a stop sign where there wasn't. Is there any kind of an ordinance that we have to, as a council, pass to approve that as a stop sign ordinance? You understand what I'm saying? Or is it something that the police department and you determine is essential and you can go do it and it's legal? I mean, you know, we can be fined. I mean, the person running the stop sign can be fined, taken to court, blah, blah, blah.
With the way our policy is set, it does require you all to approve a modification. Once the planning and zoning department looks at a housing plan, they approve everything in conjunction with DOT. So once that's done, any modification after that actually requires a vote of you all to then make it legal for the police to be able to enforce. for example, there's several no parking signs around town, we have no idea why they're there. They was never approved. That means they can't then legally enforce that. So they're constantly having to to research when we get a called-in complaint, whether it be parking or stop sign violation, they're researching to make sure, one, that it was approved by you all to be that way, or in the original plans, that planning and zoning approved to be that way.
Is there anything we need to do to facilitate that or make that
The parking,
the erroneous signage that?
We've been plucking them as we know about it.
That doesn't sit well with me. If there's anything that we can do.
Do we know how the erroneous signage got put up?
Right, that's alarming.
When the chief was first here, I would say within 6 months is when we discovered and we plucked them. But as we see others, if it's not approved, we are plucking them. And then if those citizens in that area wish to, they can come back before you all, just like Barium is doing now.
Yeah, don't get the wrong idea. Thank you for doing that, having your office do the due diligence, but I don't think you should have to.
taken care of. There was a few and it went and there was, looked back through and they've never been approved they were never approved.
But we had, this goes back to even before I was on council, back when I first moved to Troutman, maybe before then, and Duck may remember the guy's name, Fred something. Anyhow, he was a part-time police officer here, and he went up and down here just he thought something needed to be 25 instead of 35. He'd bought his own sign, stick it up.
He did.
And people made that sign for years before somebody said, wait a minute, that's not based in law. And there, over years, and I'm surprised nobody's come back and sued, and I'm up, of course, we're past statute of limitation now, so I guess I can talk about it. That's ridiculous. If he thought we need to stop sign,
There was actually a discussion that he might be borrowing some of those speed limit signs from another municipality.
Barney?
It should have been. But let me ask you then, if I heard you correctly, then we do need to pass something to make those stop signs legal? Or did I misunderstand?
If you all approve this, then that makes them legal. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Brings them into the fold with all of that.
Gotcha, okay,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Nothing, so nothing in our ordinance requires any review by, fire chief or anything like that on those roads. Already.
Depends. There could be some that requires the review, but in this situation, with it being open, obvious intersections, it does not hinder our fire trucks' ingress or egress. It just simply slows traffic. The one thing that I will say is we will have to check the driveways of some of the residents and make sure that they understand, state statute, the chief can talk about it more. When there's a stop sign there, you can't have parking within so many feet of that stop
This
sign.
was my question.
Yeah, between that and our ordinance.
Well, especially there.
Yeah, dictates, it states how you can't park within, is it 15 or 30 feet?
30.
I think it's 30.
30 feet of a stop
I think
sign.
it's 30. And we did have that discussion with the HOA presidents prior and afterwards. And also the maintenance component, that was acknowledged in there as well. If it's put on private property, it still becomes a town sign after they've paid for it and put it up. But we're not gonna get out and mow around that sign. That's on the property owner to maintain. And per their email, that was reiterated, and they have acknowledged that they're responsible to keep the signs clean.
But if the sign is damaged for whatever reason, we replace it.
Once the initial installation is complete, after that, it's the town responsibility to maintain. Yes, sir. Kind of like street lights. Once they put them up, after that, it's on us.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
So what I heard is no parking 30 feet from the stop sign. So then, are no parking signs gonna go up also?
No,
No.
they're not required. Our ordinance doesn't require that. It would be written, if the officer generally on those things, what the officers try to do is find the person, and have them move the car.
Because a lot of people do park in front of their homes in that development.
Yes, we're aware, and that would be, we would start, even when the stop signs are put up, you know, if it's approved, we would not immediately, like day one, be sitting out there writing tickets on it. You know, you give a certain amount of time for people to
Right.
come aware they're there.
Because I don't think the HOA is informing the people that are 30 feet in front of their house that they can't park in front of their house.
Yes,
They're not doing a great job of informing the people at the 4 stop signs.
yeah, okay.
So that was my question, is I believe you mentioned early on that you had solicited some feedback. Did you receive any?
Yes, but there were 7 that said, don't do a thing, don't spend no money for nothing, leave it the way it is. 2 said stop signs, and then when the HOA met, which composed of the formal process for the community, I was told unanimous to proceed with the stop signs. And I didn't go and match up the address, but basically I was told those that live the furthest away was saying no. But the ones that live right there said yes.
That clears up some things for me. Thank
All
you.
right, next item.
New business, Roman numeral 9A, consider text amendment regarding additional language establishing a local commercial LC zoning category, and amend the use matrix. Andrew?
Yeah, in some discussion with some of the property owners, mainly along the western side of Main Street here, we anticipate that area will probably eventually develop as commercial properties. I noticed in our ordinance, we do have a hole. We have our central business district, which has maximum setbacks. So basically, you have to build over the whole property. And then our next categories are highway business, which covers, you know, Lowe's, Food Lions, gas stations. So there's kind of a hole with small-scale commercial. And then we've also had some discussions about particularly Eastway, maybe developing as commercial in the future. So what I had determined to do was just amend the code to add a smaller scale commercial district, so we can allow less intensity uses, and recommend that if people do come in order to develop these properties. What I've done, anything that's 5,000 square feet or less would be permitted by right. Anything between the 5,000 and 15,000 would be a conditional zoning, so we'd be able to get on top of that on the front end. And anything larger than that, you don't own this district. So that's the basic gist of what I'm doing here. I just noticed there was a hole in the ordinance, and if we do want to encourage small-scale mom-and-pop stores, we're going to need to do something to allow them to be there.
5,000 will be about a general retail size shop, right?
Yeah. 5,000.
Pharmacy.
Like well, actually, Walgreens is more like 9,000.
Yeah.
So 5,000 would be like.
Well, they don't have
ABC
bags.
store?
Yeah, ABC store, like what we consider like a standalone Subway.
Yeah.
So something like that.
Okay, gotcha.
Now this, as I understood, or got the impression from one or the other, this is neighborhoods centrist, however, you know, you're talking like out here on Main Street, I mean, obviously that's not the neighborhood, traditional neighborhood we think of, but still, that is a neighborhood.
Sure.
As such, but again, it's neighborhood centric,
Yeah.
is the goal of it, okay.
And because I couldn't think of anything more creative, I used local commercial, so I'm not married to that name, if anybody has any opinions about that.
Oh, I didn't know we could brainstorm the name. I'll need some time on that one.
We need a naming committee.
No, let.
Yeah. We need to send this to.
Yeah.
Take this temperature, I think it's going on.
But I've included the use table, I anticipate to be allowed, and,
Right.
There's sign ordinance is basically what we would allow in most of the other commercial districts, so, all that stuff's included in the packet, so if you guys see anything in that before Thursday, that you have any questions, just let me know.
I definitely like the idea, I'm sorry, Mayor, because I just know there's been some, off and on discussions over the years about how do we grow our Main Street? And
I think this is it.
this is definitely a step in the right direction, absolutely.
So the question, does any of our conditional zoning apply in this level of permitting, as far as development or design? materials or image, what we,
Anything commercial, has to go in front of our design review board anyway.
okay,
But with the conditional zoning, if, it's like a kind of a negotiation between the developer and council.
Mhm.
So if there's something from an aesthetical standpoint that you wanna see, you can have that discussion with them. And if they agree to it, it will become part of the zoning district.
okay.
Yep.
However, if the discussion, say, between Andrew and the developer is not, and I'll say to your liking, if you happen to hear or take an interest in that particular, then you can come before the design review board and have that second
No,
chance.
I'm on the council, I'm not doing all that.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm just saying. Or you could send somebody, a good friend, to speak in your
Yeah.
behalf. But again, there are two shots at it.
Yeah. Thank
Will
you.
this have any potential impact on the current businesses in that area?
Yes.
Unless, if you want to rezone your property to this, I don't anticipate, unless they wanna get a little bit more intense out here, some of these businesses that are maybe office institutional or something, they would have to come to us and say, we wanna do this. This is something, we're not gonna force them to zone into this category.
Agreed, and the reason I was saying yes, it will impact them, it will allow for better development of neighboring properties. It's a positive impact that I see, not a negative.
Does it also benefit if our existing businesses are upgrading their facilities or anything?
It could.
Yeah. For zoning restrictions they may currently have? Okay.
So then we're really not gonna need to grandfather anything, like some previous changes in the past.
And I'll say as far as that, within the last couple of years, there's been a couple properties here that we've zoned to that central business district. They're already non-conforming because they don't meet the setbacks of the ordinance. So by doing that, they were zoned, but they became a non-conforming structure immediately as soon as they were zoned because the setbacks for the central business are just, they're not
Excessive.
realistic for the development we're gonna get.
Well, we had the same problem at the Fairgrounds Shopping Center, right, where it was just, with the stroke of the pen, everything became non-conforming at one point, right? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanna bring up, yeah, next item.
The county commissioners tuned in?
9B,
Thank you.
Roman numeral 9B. Ordinance amending the Town of Code of Ordinances, Chapter 90.15 and 90.16, adding language that allows goats for grazing. That's not a permanent keeping a goat at your house. And also allowing for hens to be in the town limits. Just as a reminder to council, prior to the great waste of money in hiring a company to do our ordinances, both of these were allowed in the town of Troutman. We paid this company to come in, they redone them, but they decided instead of it being in our UDO, which is where it was at the time, it was more appropriate to be in the Code of Ordinances. The transition from a plan and zoning director that resigned to the part-timers that were filling in the role, somehow, some way, that ball got dropped, and the transition of allowing folks to continue with a grazing goat for cleaning up property and or having hens never got put in the Code of Ordinances. We did discuss it one time previous, however, I would say it was using a broader brush that were allowing a lot of other animals. Conversation from council at the time, one board member in particular said they didn't want to utter, they didn't want to have to debate what it is, what it was. They talked about some of these communities with HOAs. The only thing I will say, Andrew and I have learned, well, we knew, but to make you all aware, most housing that has HOAs already has rules in place that these are not allowed. So we're not restricting anybody worse than they already are. But for those in our town limits that own 3/4 acre lot and wants to have 3 or 4 chickens, and I stress hen chickens, not roosters, that is not a harm to their neighbors. And especially when we have some that owns 5 and 10 and 20 acres, I think we could be liable if we continued with the no goats, no chickens rule.
The hens part of it is fine for, as you said, we've had that in the past, no problems that I'm aware of, no roosters. I would like somehow to stipulate though that, I know in the past, and Andrew can maybe dig it out, we had specified, some sort of a chicken coop that's not an eyesore and would not be something that would detract from existing property values close around. But something that would, be for hens to be, they use the term in here, stabled in. But also, I would like to see somehow that, and I understand there's gonna be fencing to keep them from leaving the property, but I'd like to see something to keep them from possibly being in the front yard. You're driving down the street and, you got 4 chickens out in the front yard picking and so forth, perhaps restricting that to the backyard or to the sides of the backyard. That would be one thing I would ask you folks to think about. The other, we had this discussion, it's probably the 4th time I've had this discussion since the 90s. And we did come from a time that when we had horses over there on Litton Street. I remember that situation well. Cows, sheep, the goats, when we were looking at that several years ago, and one reason that I think we kind of let it drop after, I can't remember his name, what was the part-timer?
Jonathan.
George something, or was it?
Jonathan Wells.
John, yeah. Anyhow, but he had mentioned that, but then, I got some calls, people saying that, the goats, they did not want goats in town. And also the person that had got the whole thing started about perhaps allowing goats to be rented to clean up vegetation that was out of control, and they didn't want to use any kind of a chemical herbicide, had moved, and there was no longer a problem for them, and they didn't care. So that's the reason we kind of backed away from that. But the hens, fine. Again, like to restrict them to backyard side, not the front yard. The goats, I've got no problem with the rental to, within something, maybe referenced in here, some sort of limitations on how that would be handled as far as temporary goats coming in to clean up. Not so sure about, allowing it as a permanent situation, mules, donkeys, sheep, cows, and what I'm proposing is on the horses, cows, sheep, goats, and I'm talking permanent, not commercial and temporary, mules and donkeys, 3 acres. And on the hens, that's fine, except those restrictions that I mentioned.
So that I'm clear, you're saying move the acreage from a minimum of 2 to 3.
3 acres.
For horse, cow, sheep, mules, and donkeys.
Yes, that's essentially putting it in rural preservation. That's what it boils down to, putting it into rural preservation type settings.
And hens to
Hens
side
just be
or
restricted to
backyard.
side or backyard or side backyards.
I do think that's in
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna say, I think most of that is covered, but Andrew.
You talking about the hens?
Other than the hens.
Well, I don't know about keeping it out of the front yard, though. That was the situation. I understand the fencing, but that could allow them to be in the front yard.
Andrew, any thoughts on?
No, I mean, if we want to move forward with, some language about side and rear yard only, that's not a problem. We can get that included on here prior to Thursday.
I think that, if I'm not mistaken, that kind of already falls within ordinances that you can't even fence in your front lawn for that kind of
Yeah.
usage.
I'm sorry, what's that? What?
The way the ordinance reads about front yard fences is so long as it's, 4 feet or less, you're allowed to have a
Right.
fence in your front yard.
Right.
So technically you would be fenced in, but if, depending on what you wanna do with chickens, we can craft this language any way you guys want.
So,
Well, they've gotta be 50 yards from any public street. That's, I mean, that's number one.
so it's not even in the front yard. So if they jump the fence and they're in the front yard, are those free-range chickens?
Well, 150, that's 150 feet, but I'm just saying in the front yard. So, you know, that's,
Yeah.
I think, front yard.
Okay, Mr. Now?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Less than probably 3 years ago, this came up, okay, and I get this thing can come back up, I get it. But, the International Goat Owners Association of Troutman, how many people, want goats out of the 3,000 or 4,000 people that we have living?
For, just to explain the town staff's position, I think we can, if somebody wishes to sue us for not allowing chickens, I think we can be sued and lose in that. But when we brought it up, I expressed to Andrew, don't just bring up chickens, bring up the whole thing and let council decide what's appropriate or not. So that's the reason that it came back up as a total. Nobody to my knowledge, since 3 years ago, has reached out saying, I wanna go. I'm not aware of one.
I'm not against the chickens, and I'm not trying to talk Paul, okay? But it sounds like myself and maybe Paul has a problem with the goats, okay? So, can we take the goats off the table? Why do we gotta put them on the table?
I wanna ask for clarification on the problem with goats, because I don't believe this ordinance is allowing the goats as a pet. This ordinance is allowing the goats as a service, and it's
Well, but
specifically.
But we had someone, Nick, that wanted to rent goats to eat
Kudzu.
okay? And the council turned that down.
Well, I think we,
And I'm not saying that we
You
should.
wanna come look at my kudzu forest every summer? By all means,
Sure.
that's all I look at all summer long.
Right, so currently the goats are allowed on quarter acre.
Only through the months of March and November, is that correct?
no, I thought that was just for the temporary,
Yeah.
for the temporary rental to do what you were talking about.
The grazing goats would be March through November, quarter acre lot minimum.
Okay, that would be for permanent pet goats and that
No.
sort of thing, or
Grazing goats only.
grazing, temporary,
No pets.
commercial service, coming and so forth, okay. Yeah, that's how I interpreted that, and the quarter acre thing was for someone who wanted to go to some pet. And that's where I said, no, 3 acres, okay, but, quarter acre, I just feel like we would get some pushback from some people on that when they realize, because I know I did get calls on that after it got out, of what John was gonna propose, as far as, maybe doing it permanently as opposed to just temporarily. In fact, some people, I say some, and I'm not talking a groundswell, but there's some people call me, said, well, we want them in town temporarily, to graze vegetation during warm weather, which I don't necessarily agree with, but, as a pet, it's a heck no. So that's the reason
I think it's certainly up to you all to say no pet goats allowed, or follow the other suggestion you made of at least 3 acres before you can have one, if that's,
I'd be good with that. Yeah, I would be
Okay.
good with that.
So let me start with your first proposal. Anybody, opposed to 3 acres for a horse, cow, sheep, goats, mules, and donkeys? Question? Yes.
Does this increase from quarter acre to 3 acre on the account of goats? Is this for just the sheer, keeping in mind, just the rental aspect, or is this saying now you need 3 acres if you want to have a pet?
Just as a pet,
As a pet.
as a pet.
So we're handling that one right now. So
Okay, just,
The commercial aspect of it, grazing, is step 2, or
separate,
phase
gotcha,
2, whatever.
okay, just making, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Good, I have no problem with that.
Okay, so 3 acres, that kind of gets more into the rural part of our
Rural
community.
preservation, yes.
Rural preservation. Okay. All right.
So is our rural preservation 3 acres or 2 acres?
3 now.
Is the paperwork I'm looking at here says 2 acres?
So I'm proposing 3.
Andrew, is it 3 or 2, do you know?
What's this? I believe it's 3 acres.
that would change to the 3 acres as well. Okay. Everybody good with that? All right. So, can I get a motion that we agree on the 3 acres?
I'll make that motion, sir.
And a second.
Okay. All those in favor? say
Can
aye.
we be specific about what we're voting on?
3 acres on horse, cow, sheep, goats, and mules
As pets.
as pets.
Pets.
Yeah,
Livestock.
minimum acreage allowed. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? No, okay, so we're agreeable on that. Next part of it is to allow, hens on a 1/4 acre and goats on a 1/4 acre for the temporary use of grazing to control vegetation within the parameters set forth in, these prohibitions.
Mr. Mayor?
It's just goats.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest splitting those two. Let the hens be
So we'll do
1/4
hens
acre
first.
standalone, yes.
Yeah, hens on a 1/4 acre and goats on a 1/4 acre, but goats are just for that
Under the
specified
provisions.
period.
Commercial grazing, so.
Correct.
So,
Hens
And
are
also
very
for-
quarter, right?
Okay, I tell you what, let me do hens first. I just wanna make sure we're agreeable on hens. Hens on a 1/4 acre, up to 4 hens.
and
No roosters.
No roof.
No roosters.
so four maximum, no matter the size of the property.
No, it's 4 on a 1/4 acre, well, that's nice.
What if I have 10 acres? Am I allowed
If-
4 birds?
You know, if you
Or
wanted
4
to,
acres?
if you wanted to go with the 3 or, you know, the rural preservation thing like we did on the others, I would be, you know, if you want to do 6 to 10, I would be agreeable with that on rural preservation.
Or where do we, where's our threshold for when we actually have I don't know the word, a bona fide farm?
It really depends on the location.
How many farms do we have in Troutman City? limits?
Several.
In the limits?
Yeah.
Are there any regulations on fowl in those?
Well, I can say by ordinance, they're not allowed. But I can also say we're not running out to the farm saying, you got chickens, you can't do that.
But a bona fide farm would come under rural preservation, and you.
So that would, my convoluted point, that's a subset. This is not what we are not, I don't wanna have an inconsequential, you know, I don't wanna do what we've already done to them.
But if you wanted to, with this line underneath this table, this maximum 4 birds per property, if you wanted to strike that,
I'm sorry, what was that
you can do
again?
that.
I'm okay with the maximum 4 birds per property, I think that's a good limitation, and I think if I'm understanding correctly, the question is, can they have more than 4 birds if they have an acre of land? Is that the question?
It is, yeah.
Okay, so it means,
A hypothetical.
it's kind of covered in the asterisk, right, that it's maximum 4 birds per
So-
property.
so
Is
no.
that-
No matter how many acres you have.
Well, if they're in rural preservation, they're under different.
Right, so if you want more than 4, you're gonna have to become a bona fide farm.
That's why I said I would be able to stipulate that, if you're a rural preservation, which is minimum 3 acres, and you wanted up to 10 chickens, I mean, unless y'all say 8 or 6, whatever, I would go along with that, because that's obviously, you're talking 3 acres. That's generally on the edge of town, so I'll go along with that, but more inside, smaller property, I would ask for hens.
Last stupid question, somebody that is not currently under this, maybe they just have a typical, you know, low density, right, but they have enough acreage, how difficult is the process to do? I know, I'm not asking about the state or anything, on our side.
The way that this is written is it's a maximum of 4 birds, so it doesn't matter if they have 1 acre or 5 acres. So, I will say that anything that's an established farm most likely has one of those tax identification numbers from the state and the agricultural board, where they're basically exempt anyway, so we're not gonna touch that.
And let's just also say, as we covered, most of the residents in our town are probably in an HOA, where they already have their own laws, rules, regulations written on all of this. This is just opening it up for those that don't live inside of those HOAs to have the opportunity to
And somebody doing that, I don't think would want over 4 hens, do you think? I mean,
No.
unless they're wanting to do something, a little commercial on the side, which is a different ballgame.
No, but I mean, even within town, we have this in place, and there's chickens here located in town, because there's non-contiguous properties. Just right at the entrance of Barium Seasons, he's got, I think, 6 chickens, 2 roosters, and they're free range all over wherever they wanna go, including whatever other birds fly in, so.
Turkey.
Yeah.
There again, you know, I understand some things that need, and this is one of those things that's complaint driven. I mean, if nobody complains, I mean, I had a neighbor not too far from me that had a rooster. I did not complain, the rooster didn't really bother me. I spent a lot of time on a farm, so rooster didn't bother me, but I knew I had other comments from people. The rooster eventually went away, so, it solved itself. But again, nobody complained and the rooster was there for a while. And so, you know, it is what it is, but I'm just saying, we will put in an ordinance, whether, you know, nobody wants to complain, and they still at Barium, interest of Barium, wanna have a rooster and more chickens, nobody complains, well, I guess that's what it would be, but at least if somebody does complain, they'll have an ordinance to back up that, hey, that's not right. I mean, that's not right, it's not something that we want, for Barium Village.
The property at the entrance to Barium is in the county, it's not in our town limits, and they have a lot more than they're supposed to have.
Yeah. So.
But by our rules, not by the county. They could have quadruple it if they wanted to.
So, hens, try this again. 4 hens, quarter acre, no more than 4 per property.
Motion.
Second,
Second.
any other question or comment? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Goats. Quarter acre. For grazing during
March to October.
March to October.
Mark, not to correct, but just to read straight from the text, March 1st through November 30th.
Okay.
Just,
November 30th.
just to clarify for that, yeah.
I don't disagree with the reading, but if we're truly doing it for the purpose of grazing, there's no greenery in November unless we have an abnormal year.
So I would just say maybe we need to roll back our date to, through October 31st?
October 30th.
Okay.
I would also ask, all right, talking about, the maximum frequency of grazing. Some words, you bring somebody in March 1st and they'll leave the goat out there till October 31st, if they can afford it. So we would have, that would be determined with, say, a negotiation between, the resident and Andrew, who issues the temporary permit for that, or what?
I wanna, let's read through the rules here proposed, cause I think they cover some of that. So grazing shall only occur between March 1st and October 31st, as we just changed, be limited on specific properties to 2 times per calendar year. Property to be grazed shall be completely enclosed by secure fencing. The health and welfare of the goats must be ensured by the owners of the goats. Grazing shall be limited to no more than 7 consecutive days per permit, no more than 2 times per calendar year. So,
Do you think that's enough?
absolutely.
7 days, they could eat a town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's enough.
Yeah.
Put enough goats in there, they'll eat it all down.
But you're talking one goat, aren't you?
No.
No.
In this would, so they could,
How
on
many
the quarter
goats
acre,
do you
we're
bring
talking one goat, right?
We're gonna bring 20 out near Eddie.
Eddie, I wouldn't do that to you, man. I won't be a part of that.
So,
I don't want you to
I think
buy.
that's an important point. I would say we should limit it
So
to
limit it to how many goats?
2.
So,
Okay.
Well, but there
I'm not
again,
a grazing expert though, so.
I was gonna say, it's kinda like what Jerry was saying earlier. If it's the back of a normal, most of our normal lots are half acres or less.
right.
But if you happen to have 2 or 3 acres, 2 goats, 7 days ain't enough. I mean, it's just not.
That's my.
I don't want our enforcement people to have to get in a situation to where they're looking it up. 4 acres, you can add 12 goats. To me, it goes back to, years ago when we was on the Board of Adjustments and had a farm, and somebody wanted to limit them as to how many cows they could have. These people are gonna know what the property can maintain. If it's 7 days, if they brought 10 goats in, I agree with Eddie, that the neighbors might not want all the racket, but to me, if you bring 10 in and 3 days it's clean, they're not gonna leave them out there an extra 4 days with nothing to eat. They're gonna have to feed them at that point.
Yeah.
And extra water. So, to me, if there's an issue, I think our code enforcement through animal control and the welfare of an animal can handle it to make it go away quicker. But if we get into 1 or 2 or 3, then that varies based off of the lot size and the issue. Cause we'll use the land in between ESC, building and the park. 2 goats, 7 days there, not gonna do squat.
So would it
Nothing.
be better to say per permit issuance? Like it's determined at the permit time?
In my opinion, I think the market determines it. If I'm running this business, I'm not sending 30 of my goats to Smith Village.
That's right.
Right, I'm gonna send 30 to the farm.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, buddy, you get 1, and you're gonna get him for 2 days because I got another job. I think we're kind of butting up to,
All
the
right.
market will kind
So-
of handle that.
So should we say quantity we're not gonna worry about, it's just the length of time?
I don't
So
think
whereas
so.
if they wanna bring in 30 dogs for 7 days, that's okay.
I would rather my neighbor bring in an army for 1 night than be hamstrung and string me up for 2 weeks where I'm listening to bass.
To clear 1 acre.
And the whole lot has to be enclosed too.
Yeah, they have to.
About this
fenced
wall,
in.
Yeah.
Which all that is in
So I'm calling, if your lot's not enclosed, I'm calling the goat police and the police are coming.
Well, yeah.
I was just informed it takes roughly,
8 goats to clear 1 acre in 30 days. Just like that.
Okay.
On average.
Now, if we get into pygmies, we can add an extra week.
do they get like time served for fainting goats? Do they stop the clock?
So everybody good with what we got here?
Yes.
I think it's covered.
You need a motion?
Yes.
I do.
Motion.
Second,
All right, what's the motion?
Second.
Sorry, what's that motion?
To accept what's here.
accept what's currently on.
With the amendment of October 31st.
Yes.
Okay, well, we're gonna have a grazing time. A grazing period.
March 1st.
That's already on there.
But I mean, as far as
7
individual
days.
sections.
7
7 days, 2 times,
Yep.
and we feel like, okay.
2 times maximum.
Well,
a
if we
year.
allow, if we don't stick to just 1 goat per quarter acre, they can bring 30 goats in for a half acre if they
They
want
can't
to.
have no pets. They can't have them as pets.
Yeah, I'm saying, if they have a half acre, they can bring in 30 goats for up to 7 days, 2 times, for that 5 or 6 month period.
If their HOA allows it.
Huh?
If their HOA allows it.
And if they're.
Well, yeah.
Well, you got an extra layer of
Yeah, I'm
protection
saying-
as far as that.
No,
But
like
yeah,
I
we're not worried
said,
about
outside the HOA,
And
Is that-
also if their permit is approved.
okay, and the permit's approved, so that's what we're saying in the motion,
Yes.
okay?
Motion is made,
Second.
received the second. Any other question or comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
Opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion passes. She was saying,
I don't want to get shot.
These New Yorkers, what
All
do you
right,
think?
next item. Thank you. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Contest is fair.
The next item, horse auctions.
Horse shows,
That's,
Horse shows.
that's what will be, on the ordinance. Andrew, you got all the changes, so we'll reflect on Thursday. Cam, any questions? So Thursday, we won't be rehashing this on Thursday.
Oh, yeah, we.
No, we know.
Not
The mayor said no.
too much, but we passed this one tonight.
I said 7 days.
If I'm feeling the paper capacity Thursday night, I'm going to have to bring it up.
I am wanna call for an adjournment. Somebody brings it up. We're gonna go into immediate adjournment and have a conversation.
Closed
All
session
right,
immediately.
So, the next item is to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, 1186 for personnel matter and for 143, 318, 1185 for acquisition of property. Is there a motion?
Take that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none, motion passes. Who do we need? All right.
We need our attorney in the